The format of this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, a coffee break, and then the main speaker. Tonight, our first speaker is the amazing, beautiful Hillary, my wife.
That was a nice introduction. Hi, I'm Hillary, alcoholic. Hey. Thank you, Tom, for asking me to come along with you. And thank you. Who asked you to come tonight? Jan. Thank you for asking us to come tonight. This is a old home group that I used to go to. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm Hillary, alcoholic. Did I say that? Hillary. A little nervous. Can't help it. Always. Yeah, we used to come to this meeting years and years ago, and circa 1980s, so, in the 1900s when this meeting was still going on, and it was called the Glitter Dome, and it was the big nighttime meeting. You'd get all dressed up, and, and then you usually go to the Kettle, pre-party at the Kettle, and then go out, Anyway, I'm really glad to be here tonight, and I thank you guys for all being here, and I got sober in 1988, so it's a lot of life. I was thinking this is like my spirit animal. I'm like a cat. I've had like so many lives in the time that I've been sober, and I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful that I've been sober this long, and this is my husband, Kurt. I got married this year. That's an amazing thing. He says I'm very lucky. He's a double winner. He's never been married before, and he doesn't have any kids, which is pretty amazing. Yeah, it's a little Alanani joke. So when I was 20 years old, and so it was 1988, and I was 20, and I was on a trip with my mom, a really great trip. She was working, but it was it was a coast trip. She was a tour guide, so she was taking this whole crew of people up to I think we ended in San Francisco. And I had just come off a 2-week bender. I was 20 years old, and we were at the Carmel Mission, and it was a stop for the tourists, and I stood there, and I just was looking through the gate, and and I was again, I just come off a 2-week bender. My mom had been out of town for 2 weeks, and I did what any 20-year-old would do, and I just ramped it up, and I partied for endless days straight, and yet I was having trouble getting as drunk and as wasted as I wanted to. I was having trouble with my emotional life. I was in a space that was really the lowest I've ever been. And yet, I was on this trip with my mom, so I was pretending. She was 10 years sober at the time in AA. And, I do a good people pleaser routine. And so I was on this trip with her, and I was doing my best. And I had a moment, and it was probably a moment of clarity. I was standing outside these gates, and there was this wedding going on in the cathedral of this mission up in Carmel. Beautiful place. If you haven't been there, check it out. And it was like they were starting their life, these people, this couple, this marrying couple, and I thought how brave that was, because I would never do that. I would never be able, the way I was living, I would have no hope of having a future. And in that moment, I remember we were sharing about it this summer. I kind of had a premonition that I was going to die an alcoholic. Chokes me up, die an alcoholic death, It was just a moment. Came over me. I thought, I'm going to die in a fiery car crash. Anyway, that's kind of where things started for me. I got sober about 2 weeks later after that little event. A series of unfortunate things had to happen, and then I got sober. So that's it. That's the end of my story. Anyway, so I grew up on the mean streets of Palos Verdes, and I grew up in an alcoholic home. I was saying my mom got sober when I was 10. But I think I suffered from a spiritual malady early on. I think I just had this, need to belong. I had a want to, have you guys like me. And I was an only child, so that kind of set me up for being a little bit selfish, maybe a little bit sensitive, and kind of alcoholic traits, but, still. Anyway, I remember having this experience that I was able to tap back into later in my practice of the 12 steps, where I was asked to look at any time in my life where I had a connection with God. And I couldn't have been more than awesome, 5 years old or something. And oh my God, I'm only at 5 years old and I have 5 minutes left. Lord. Anyway, I tapped into that spiritual experience feeling. I was laying on the grass out front of our house up in PV, and I knew my parents were going through it. My dad had left. My mom was trying to get sober, and I was laying under this tree, and I saw the clouds going by. I was on the grass, and I thought, everything's okay. Everything's going to be okay. And it was like a God's got this maybe or something, but anyway, fast forward, I found alcohol, and that solved the belonging thing. I had a need to feel connected, and when I found alcohol, the first time I drank, I was 11 years old, and it was it. It was the jam. It was it fixed everything, and I just wanted more. And that's the other thing I suffer from, is this physical allergy to alcohol, where I take a little and I have alcoholism, and so I want more. And it doesn't really, sometimes I couldn't get it because I was really young, but when we could, I would drink as much as there was, as long as I could, And that first time I drank, I got alcohol poisoning, and then, a couple years later, I was 16, and I was in a 2-car crash in the same night. And the thing was, I would usually have a plan, and I could never do the plan because the drinking would take over, and so that's the physical allergy for me, and it went on for years and years, and I was maybe a periodic at that time, and then I became a chronic alcoholic, and, periodic is just you drink, occasionally, maybe every Thursday through the weekend, and then you wait all week to drink again. Chronic alcoholism is frequent occurrence, and for a long duration. And I was that. By age 16, I was a chronic alcoholic. So I ended up starting to try to stop drinking, and I couldn't do that either. I had this mental obsession with drinking. And anytime I was dry for a period of time, all I could do was think about drinking the next time. All I could do was think about, when was the next time we were going to score? When was the next time we were going to, party? We called it partying back in the day, and back in the 1900s, and I just had this thing where I moved to England one time to get away from all of you guys, because obviously it was your fault that I was drinking as much as I was, and turns out they have pubs in England, and so I drank a lot in England, and then I came back, and at 19, 20, I was starting to pay attention to how much I couldn't stop when I wanted to. And then I couldn't stay stopped when I made a solemn oath. And I had this seizure, and I was with a great weekend partying out in Elsinore, and I had this little grand mal seizure in a place that was kind of like the Kettle. I had it in the lobby, in the waiting area, and all my friends were there, and not super glamorous. And I was withdrawing from alcohol just from the night before. That's how much I was drinking, and so I was able to swear off after that event, and I didn't drink until that evening. And that's when I had started going, oh my God, this is so sad, and then that brings me to that day, where I was at the Carmel would be the thing, mission. And anyway, there's a treatment here that this thing right here, It's the, we have a threefold disease, there's a threefold solution. And the way to treat alcoholism, I found when I came here, is I bring my body to meetings and I don't drink. That's the first thing. Abstinence, awesome. But for me, I couldn't stay abstained from alcohol without, doing a program for living. And that's the 12 steps. And in this process, I was able to find my story, which is what I was sharing tonight. There's a whole bunch of examples of the physical allergy and the mental obsession and the spiritual malady. And what's happened for me being here is that I have had this exponential growth. I love my life. I am so grateful that I get to share it with this wonderful person. I have these just gazobs of friends. I have been sponsored by amazing people. I have sponsored amazing people. It is a life not to miss. But I didn't really do anything. God, it's grace that I'm here. So I'm guessing it's grace that you guys are here. So don't squander it. Grab somebody if you feel on the fence. Grab somebody if you, think you have a good plan. Little plans and designs are cleaned up by doing this work right here. And I did find a God of my own understanding here, and it goes back to that feeling I had out on that grass, laying under that tree, that the great outdoors is really my jam. And I am so grateful that AA has given me a way to access that on the regular. And now I do more, though. I have a meditation practice. I do a yoga practice. I go to regular meetings. My home group is the back room. Hey, John, you're a little late. You freaking missed it, man. Back room, Hermosa Beach Alano Club. And it's 6:45 in the morning. It's a great way to start the day. 7's on the weekends. And then I do Zoom, too, with that same meeting. And there's a Tuesday women's meeting I go to. And I come to, obviously the sanctuary group. And I'm just so great. That's it. I'm done, for sure. All done.
Amazing.